Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. I did say I wanted to carry on some more showcases of units, level 10 link videos while the Turtle celebration goes on, and we have a bit of a down period before Global does get LRSJ for Goku, and we're going to carry on doing exactly that, and we're going to be carry on using, who I almost forgot I started, his tour with the EZA STR SSJ Trunks. A unit that has kind of been a very unsung hero against Red Zone ZAMASU. So I'm going to finish out his run and I'm going to finish it out properly. Actually doesn't link too badly with Future Gohan, who we are going to leave in slot 1. Just because turn 1, considering he does of course raise his defense by 40% for 6 turns, which we might not even get to see him fully get that 6 turns worth of defense. But doing his first super while having 40% damage reduction and that's it, it's only going to do so much. Like, right now he has type disadvantage, Cell Max can super for 600k multiple times, 300k on a basic. And again, that type advantage is kind of a big issue right now. And of course, since we're not facing a Realm of Gods category enemy, we don't have that guaranteed additional or the attacks effective against all types either. But mainly, we don't have the guaranteed additional. So we have to be a little bit careful because we're not going to get 80% for the turn and then potentially even 120% because of the potential system. The most we're going to get is 80 if the PTO kicks in, but potentially just 40. But how much is he going to take? This is literally the worst possible scenario, which is turn 1, he's only just started supering, no guaranteed additional because of the enemy. Just 40% damage reduction and 130, what, 7k defense? Still took 163. We've actually lost a ton of HP this turn, which, I mean, I should have put the Fran one in slot 1, but I want him on slot 2. And in the second rotation. Damn. See, this is why I still like to take units, especially side EZAs, but this is why I still like to take EZAs, side EZAs, new units. I like to take them and just do the full works, the full shebang, like from Red Zone Omega to Shadow Dragon Sin, but eventually Omega to Red Zone Fusion ZAMASU, just because each boss, each difficult enemy offers something different. I am actually going to use a Whis. We kind of need to. I've got 90k HP. I want Vegeta and Trunks on the next rotation with Strength Trunks. So I kind of need to do this to get there. Oh, 5 dodge, 5 dodge, love that, 5 dodge. It's a 5 dodge. But yeah, I mean, that, I'm not gonna lie, that so far from what I've used of him outside of Red Zone ZAMASU, like I said, this guy's a very much an unsung hero against Red Zone ZAMASU. Like, I've used him a ton there, with not only just naturally beating ZAMASU, but then doing the 2 missions, to then going into Divine Wrath Mortal Will, which stage 8 is also Fusion ZAMASU. And while using him in Red Zone Omega and now Cell Max, not having that guaranteed additional is definitely noticeable. Don't get me wrong, his first appearance was honestly just against him, like that's his worst possible setup, so I don't really hold him to it, you know. Type disadvantage, he hasn't been super attacking at all, he only supered once, doesn't have the guaranteed additional, so he doesn't get a bit of extra defense to kind of help him out for the first turn. And again, that 40% damage reduction is only going to do so much for him while he has no defense. So while he did take quite a bit of damage on a basic, I mean, it makes sense why he would. And again, he's a side EZA, but for a side EZA, I can't knock it because of how well he's actually done against the likes of, you know, Fusion ZAMASU. He actually is perfectly linked up because of that Trunks. Like, I really do like how well they link together. It's just neither of them are slot 1 unit. I mean, one of them in slot 3 would work, which is naturally probably where you would have this guy, but for now, I mean, we have a Whis active, so do you know what? I'm going to do this so Trunks can get an extra stack. He's already up to 287k defense though, which is actually pretty good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, every time I've used him, I've not really paid too much attention to where his defense is. And that sounds really stupid, but I think that's just because I know ZAMASU does so much damage anyway. I mean, he already has 287k defense, which is actually pretty good considering he's only supered once. And we still have 5 more turns of building his defense up. It sounds kind of stupid, but whenever I used him against ZAMASU, I didn't keep checking where his defense was. I think that's because I knew that ZAMASU just naturally does a ton of damage. Like, don't get me wrong, we're actually getting a lot of his extra attack and defense because we do have low HP. Of course, he has that mechanic of the less HP remaining, the bigger the stat boost towards that 180%. So that is playing a factor. But naturally against ZAMASU, you were taking so much damage as it is that I think a lot of the time we probably had like maximum at all times 60% HP and less. So this is kind of normal-ish for him. So there's some more defense. PTO, no PTO. We do have a Whis active, so this shouldn't really do too much. Yeah, nothing. You know, we're looking at 40% damage reduction with his own damage reduction, 40% damage reduction from the Whis. That alone, even if he had no defense, would be enough to just save him here. And that's another thing. For those of you who use items and not like the no item runners, this guy with a Whis is ridiculously good. I mean, even without it, he's still a very good side EZA. Like, I still think it's crazy that him, EZA and ZAMASU are so much better than Transforming Goku Black's EZA. And he's a Dokkan Fest EZA. Like, how are two side EZAs in 2023 shitting on the big Dokkan Fest EZA from a major celebration like Worldwide? Like, it shouldn't be happening. But that is the case with them. Like, they are really good. Like, him and this guy and ZAMASU are just generally that good. Kind of worried about Fizz future Gohan, I won't lie. We're gonna firm it. We're gonna risk it. But it is crazy that they're that much better than him. Like, if they are that good. Even EZA Trunks and Mai, the AGL Trunks and Mai, even they are a lot better than Transforming Goku Black. Like, on their own, they're still pretty solid EZA for what they do. But because of how valuable they were, because of the content that came from this year's Worldwide, from ZAMASU in Divine Wrath Mortal Will, the missions we had, Red Zone ZAMASU, the missions from there as well, and the extra buff, or like, what is it, the guaranteed crit and that they get from facing a ZAMASU or Goku Black unit. Not only were they a solid EZA anyway, but because of the buffs they got from facing those specific enemies, which were everywhere in the difficult content from this year's Worldwide, it gave them even more value. And because of that, they are even an EZA that's a side EZA that's so much better than a Dokkan Fest EZA in Transforming Goku Black, which is still wild. Like, right now, even though we do have quite low HP, this strength EZA Trunks is cooking. Like, he is the rock right now. He has 360k defense. 360k defense. He has 360k defense. So even without his damage reduction, basic attacks from Cell Max don't touch him already. And we're 5 turns deep. He still has, what, 4 turns of building up his defense? Which is kind of crazy. We still have lowish HP, but again, naturally against some of the harder enemies, this will probably happen. He doesn't have his guaranteed additional either. This is just his damage reduction and him building up his defense on Super. He also has a great slot 1 unit in Vegeta and Trunks, which I really do like if you are going to run him on rotation, which he's more than viable to do, and I did it myself against Red Zone ZAMASU's Fizz stage. Like, that damage reduction, the defense, the type of RH plays a massive part. But right now, he'd be able to contend with Cell Max basics with 40% damage reduction, and again, how much defense? 360k. I don't think a super attack touches him. And especially this turn alone, where he also has type advantage. So he's going to do some extra damage and be a bit bulkier as well, which we're not going to turn down. And how many supers has he done? I think he's only done a handful of supers, which is a shame, because of course then he'll get the extra 10% damage reduction and go to 50. Which is nice. Again, it's only going to make so much of a difference because it's only 10, but still, you'd rather have it than not, right? But because we don't have his built-in additional and we're relying on the PTO for the most part, 5.5 mil. To be fair, he is perfectly linked up with the EZA transforming Trunks, but I'll take the extra damage. This isn't going to do anything. Or it won't do a lot. Yeah, no. No, obviously not. Even type neutral, his Cell Max's super attacks won't hit him that hard because, again, over 300k defense, 40% damage reduction. The only thing, and this is where I've noticed this more from the Red Zone Omega run and now this one, compared to how much I've used them against ZAMASU and just kind of being used to it because of how many runs I've done. That built-in additional, not having it, because we're not facing Realm of God category enemies, is noticeable. The extra 40% defense, it's a bit of a miss. It's not making too much of a difference right now because Cell Max doesn't hit as hard as other enemies, and it's quite easy to get this Strength Trunks going after literally, as you saw, one turn of supering and supering once. But the thing I have noticed is, and this is where it's noticeable for the most part, is the fact that because we don't have the guaranteed additional and we're relying on the PTO, which is only a chance, whereas if we were facing a Realm of Gods category enemy, it's guaranteed, we're not getting that 10% damage reduction in full swing or as quick as we usually would, and it's a little bit noticeable. As I said, the additional and the damage reduction is noticeable because of how much it affects. Because usually we'd be super, or if we were in against Red Zone ZAMASU, like where I've been using him pretty much this entire time, we would have super attacked 6 times by now, because we would have super attacked 2 times guaranteed each turn, whereas we've only been super attacking once. The potential system hasn't been triggering that much for us, even though he's rainbowed, which is typically what happens when I use units and, you know, in videos. I don't know why, it just happens, but still. So that is kind of noticeable, and that is kind of missing out on a lot if you think about it. Like, again, 10% damage reduction is not too much. Coupled with the 40 and having 50 is very nice, and probably slightly noticeable against more difficult enemies, but we're not getting the 10% damage reduction, or at least we're not getting it until, well, at this point, we're pretty much almost finished. Or we're not getting it at all, almost, or potentially. But then we're also not getting the additional, which means he's not doing extra damage, he's not getting extra defense in the turn. It's a small snowball effect, but it's definitely noticeable right now. 356k defense, and again, 40% damage reduction is... It's good. I'm actually going to slide him in slot 1. I'm going to slide him in slot 1, because he could actually go there. The basic isn't going to touch him. Even the super attack before he super attacks probably won't do that much damage, or wouldn't do that much damage. But does he really need the extra 10% damage reduction? Probably not. But I think because of how much it affects, because that's 2 big buffs you're missing out for not facing a Realm of God category unit, it's definitely noticeable. But he still more than holds his own. Still more than holds his own. And funny enough, I'm pretty sure he hasn't finished building up his defense either. I'm pretty sure he has 1 more turn of building his defense up for 6 turns. But even without being in kind of like the ideal environment, which is Fusion ZAMASU, in fact, any enemy aside from Cell in the new Dismal Future edition of Red Zone, any enemy there and ZAMASU from the Divine Wrath Mortal Will event is his like ideal place, and he's not in that right now, and he's still performing really well. Like, yeah, you lose out on a bit of damage, like he isn't doing too much unless he crits, but the attacks effective against all types help him out when you're facing AGL enemies, and then of course the extra additional means a bit more damage. You miss out on a bit of damage, which is a shame. You're not really bringing him for that, you're bringing him for the damage reduction and the defense. And even without the extra 10%, which, I mean, you can still get, but it just takes a lot longer to get it. But without the extra 10% damage reduction, and more importantly, the guaranteed additional, especially in the beginning, especially in turn 1, even without it, he's still more than holding his own. And again, it's still wild that him and ZAMASU and even AGL Trunks of Mai are so much better than transforming Goku Black. It's only going to get more difficult for him, and we'll see how he does. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care, have a good rest of your day, and peace.